Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where this week it's just me and Mr. Jones. Do you see what I did there? Like that, Jonesy?
Very
me
good.
and Steve.
Very good.
Jonesy, people are on holiday. Can you believe it? People are having a break. DC, he's gone to Cork Town Centre for unbelievable scenes.
I thought you said they'd all been sacked for incompetence.
Got away, yeah, exactly.
Although I would probably be the first out the door then, so probably shouldn't have said that.
No, it's a quiet one this week. People are taking a breather after what's been a manic few weeks with Cheltenham and Aintree. Well, the flat season's underway, but we're building up some big pods we've got coming up. We will be with you next week, and then we've got Punchestown and the Guineas, the crazy week of the mixture of flat and jumps. We've got a mixture of flat and jumps for you this week as well. I love this week, Steve, with Newmarket's Craven meeting and then Cheltenham jumping as well. It is a mishmash of the code. You find it all right keeping up with both codes?
Yeah, it's always crazy, isn't it? You come off the Grand National week and a few days later you're into the Guineas trials. So it takes some getting used to. I remember going to see Abernant, who won the Craven a few years ago. The
track record. Set the track record in the Craven.
Was it? Mm-hmm. And he led Abernant round when we went to his stables before the Guineas, and he was saying how big this horse was. And I thought, God, is he? Because you've been looking at these great big Grand National horses in the jumpers all winter, and he looked tiny. But it's a great time of year, I always think, because after the Grand National, you've had all the lion's share of the jumping, and you're sort of ready for the flat now, and no better way to go straight in with the Guineas trial.
Talking of the Grand National, let's just reflect on the pod's time of it at Aintree. We didn't find you the Grand National winner, which was a great shame, but we did bang you in a good few winners at prices as well. Winners wise, we had Protectorate, who I think was put up by Rixie at 10.0 on the day. Montmorale's a shade of odds on. Clanders Oboe was a best bet, went in at 3.5. Belfast Banter 10.0 for Sam Turner. That was a good shout. Hometown Boy was I think went off at 9.5. My Drogo was a strong shout from Adele. Time Hill, she had a good day on Saturday, and Happy Go Lucky was a best bet as well. And we had plenty of places for you at big prices. Miss Lamb was one at 21.0. Clondall Castle was a best bet at 7.5. With 90% of that was a place bet from DC. So all in all, we had a good Aintree, I think it's fair to say. And High Time, I reminded you of the offer, which is the Matchbook new sign-up offer. So this is for new customers only. And 30 days from the day in which you sign up, you are 0% commission on all sports. So you are guaranteed to get best prices with that 0% commission. You get it anyway on the exchange, but without any commission, you're guaranteed to get it. So 0% commission for 30 days from when you sign up on all sports. Use the bonus code INSIGHTS. That's the all-important bit for that. What's the bonus code, Jonesy?
INSIGHTS.
Look at that. We didn't even rehearse that. It is natural. Should we get stuck into the racing? The first race we're doing is the 150 at Newmarket. This is on Thursday. So what we've done for you is we're obviously recording this and going live at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. So racing's taking place at Newmarket and Cheltenham as we speak. We are doing Thursday for you, all ITV races, bar the unraced 3-year-old race, which is a head wreck, so we'd just be guessing, and you don't want guesses. And then I also thought we should throw in a couple of races from Friday, which, as things stand, we don't have prices for, but we'll get that way we can have a look at Friday, because we do have decks for it. So we don't want to give you half a pod. We'll get stuck into Friday as well. 6 furlong handicap at Newmarket. Then it's not an easy one, because there are 3-year-olds here, and a lot of them haven't been seen for some time. Creative Force is 5.0. I think that's very fair. 6.5 for Cairn Island. Jumbie is 7.0. Rohan is 7.5. Razor Glass for Robert Cowell, who started the season well, is 9.5, as is Sir Benedict, and then you get stuck into the double figures, but no massive prices in there. I've spoken too much, Steve, so kick us off. Who do you like in this and why?
Well, it's one of those tricky 3-year-old races this time of year. It's trying to identify the horses that you think are going to be higher rated later in the season. There's probably going to be a few of them that are. But the one that stands out, in my opinion, is, I know it's not very original, but Creative Force who did look a very good prospect early last season. Obviously, we had the break because of the shutdown for the pandemic, and came back and won first time up just a few days after the restart. So it was a good performance when, again, Creative Force looked like he knew what he was doing. He got to the lead, which, as we've seen over the last couple of days at the Craven meeting, that has been a big advantage at Newmarket to be on the front end. And I know the stalls are going to be on the different side to the racing on Tuesday, because they're on the far side, whereas Tuesday they were on the stand side. It's always a track, the Rowley Mile and the July course, to an extent where I think you need to be up with the pace. And if Creative Force can get a decent break, he's in stall 7, which is sort of mid to high, but I'm not sure the rail on the far side is going to be as important as it has been on the near side, so he should be fine at that. And like I say, last year he showed he handles the track by winning the 6 furlong maiden at the Rowley Mile. That form isn't bad. It's not fantastic, but it certainly wasn't bad. And he went to the Coventry at Royal Ascot with high hopes. And for a lot of the race, he looked like he was a big player. He moved really well. He was maybe a little bit keen, but he was in a prominent-ish position in the centre of the group, where the winner came from the far side, or the first few home came from the far side. I'm not sure that had a great effect, but the fact that Creative Force wasn't seen again, I think, says a fair bit that there might have been a problem there, because he moves so well, and he does look like a sprinter. So off a mark of 89, there's a lot of scope that he could be a lot better than that. His pedigree certainly suggests that there's a fair chance he will be. He's a half brother to Persuasive, who won the QE2 beating Ribchester on Champions Day a few years ago. Most of the family have been milers, but Creative Force doesn't look like he's short on pace to me. A good starting point with Charlie Appleby's horses running fairly well, what limited evidence there has been in Britain. So yeah, just a lot going for him. You're not going to get a fancy price, but he has the potential to be a good way, at least a stone ahead of his mark. Whether he can realise that potential is another matter, but you've got to give him a chance, I think.
It's, two of us on the pod, and we're both going with the favourite in the opening race that we're previewing. But I thought he might be a little bit shorter. Charlie Appleby traditionally has a very, very good. He had the 1-2 in the Fielding yesterday on Tuesday. He's got some good runners today, and some in the Craven, that one in particular, the Craven we're going to be coming to. But I think this horse is very well treated for this reappearance. They've gelded him, which is interesting. I don't have a huge amount to add to what you've said, but they've gelded him in the off season. I wondered if he was a horse who was going to go out to Dubai, because quite often he'll run horses in the early part of the season, then just put them away and then bring them out. He may have wintered out there, I don't know. I suppose as a 3-year-old sprinter, there may not have been something obvious for him, but I still think he's a very well treated horse. He did have the run of things when he won at the track. It worked out perfectly for him. He's clearly sharp enough to sit on the pace. I think, I'm not sure he's the most likely leader necessarily. I think Razor Glass, who's just outside him, may well be one to go forward. It's full of pace. And I also take the point that I don't know why it is, when you're stand side, and be that on the Craven or the Guineas track, because it's split into two, stand side rail, I often think you want to be hard up against it. And it's no bad thing being hard up against the far side rail, but I think you can be more versatile. You do want to be up with the pace, definitely. As you say, at the Rowley Mile. He's proven he's handled the track. Dip's no problem at all. I expect on pedigree, he should only improve. And everything in behind him in the betting up to Razor Glass has got to give him weight. I don't think that's going to be easy. I was, Steve, interested in Jumbie. And then I was a bit surprised that Jumbie was that, because I really like the Haynes Hansen Clark form. And I don't really mind Jumbie coming back a furlong or 2 furlongs in trip, but it may be sharp enough. But I couldn't believe he was 7.0. So that just put me off. And I think, Creative Force 2 points shorter is fair enough. 5.0. Thank you very much. Not a big bet for me, Steve. It'll just be small stakes, but that's the one I like. Do you want to add anything to it?
No, not really. I think it's interesting the amount of pace that there is in the race, but he's a horse that it's only limited evidence of his run style. So I think sitting in behind I don't think he'd be too far away from it. And he's a lot less exposed than some of his main rivals, which is another reason to think that he could be a lot better handicapped than some of them.
Let's move on to Cheltenham. So Mayor's Day at Cheltenham, Mayor's Fillies Day, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to be previewing 2 races there. We've got the Fillies Juvenile Handicap Hurdle, first of all, which is the 205. Scholastic is currently a 3.2 shot. 5 and 20 is 6.0. Progressive is the same price. 7.5 for Her Indoors. Table Mountain is 8.5. And then we get into the bigger figures. I'll kick us off here, and if only I was being original, but I'm not, I'm afraid. Look, Scholastic has shortened up since I looked at the race yesterday. So that's my white flag coming out, first of all, because she definitely wasn't this short when I looked at the race yesterday. I was hoping there could be some sort of 3.75 around, but I still think she's the most likely winner. We've seen what the Irish have done so far when they come into handicaps. I think she'll be pretty well supported. 5 and 20, I'd imagine will go forward. And I think over this trip, I don't know if you agree, Steve, I think she will want a bit of pace to chase. I think she is likely to get a little bit further in time. I think Her Indoors will be ridden more forward than she was last time in the Boodles. And I'm hoping that something else grabs the race by the scruff of the neck as well, just to make it a half decent test. I wonder if one of Harry Whittington's will go forward. I think Raffles Jatane may well be one to go and crack on with it. But Scholastic's Jeff Kidder form, I mean, she's got grade 2 form in the book, and she's still only rated 121. She did go up £6 for that, but again, she's getting a lot of weight from 5 and 20, for example, and I think she's the most likely winner. It wouldn't be a massive bet again, but I thought Scholastic had the best form in the race. I think the ground will be fine because the 2 starts over hurdles that have come on softer ground have been less impressive than the better ground she had at Fairyhouse last time. And she's back in amongst her own sex. So I thought that made her very much the one to beat. And I couldn't get very excited about those behind her in the betting. So Scholastic for me. What about you, Steve?
This is going to be the most boring podcast.
I tell you what, it's just all the favourites.
What price did you say Scholastic was?
3.1.
I wish if she was a lot bigger yesterday, I wish I'd looked at this race yesterday, because in my opinion, she will go off at the biggest 2.5.
Yeah, I agree. I think she'll get back. She's the obvious one. And I yesterday, when I made the selection, she was a bit bigger. Yeah, I think she'll go off. I think she'll go off shorter. Go on.
Well, you go back to the form with Jeff Kidder, which was in September at Punchestown on fast ground, on decent ground. And I know Jeff Kidder's obviously come a long way since then, but to take apart that sort of field in a maiden hurdle and then go on and finish second to Calixios, who obviously won the Triumph Hurdle. The form is there for everyone to see. I think she's really well handicapped. The key to her is the ground, in my opinion. If you look at her last performances on good ground, I think the last 5 flattened jumps, she's won 2 of them. She's beaten won 3 of them actually, and beaten a short head in one of the others. So this is her ground. And then you come across the fact that the Irish horses just seem to be so much better handicapped, or across the board so much better, and that hasn't really been factored into the price, I don't think. It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine in Aintree, and I said, I am only backing Irish horses. And then I backed a horse in the first race on Friday called Don Levant, who was second at 18-1 to the only Irish horse in the entire field. And he texted me and said, oh, you must have been on. And I was like, on the second. You never learn. So I've learned finally that the Irish horses have got, for whatever reason, an advantage, whether that's handicapping or whatever, but you've just got to take note of it. And Joseph O'Brien coming over with this filly, I think at 3.1, I think she's a great bet personally.
Yeah, I think you could just be looking, like you say, and for everything you've said as well there, if you go back to that Punchestown good ground form with Jeff Kidder last year, she's got to go off shorter than that.
And like you say, I think there'll be pace in the race. I think if 5 and 20 runs, she went off really hard last week at Aintree. It went third to Monreal. And before that, it made the running. So if she does run, which why wouldn't she? I know it's only 7 days later, but she's been declared. She's bound to make the running and make it a good test. And I'd say that Scholastic are just sitting behind and pick them up, and hopefully we'll be picking up as well.
Easy, simple as that. Move on. As I say, we're missing out the 3-year-old newcomer race at Newmarket because we didn't have a clue, did we, Jonesy, about that one? Why would we? Unless we got an in some of the yards. We move on to the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle at Cheltenham, the 240. Sexy Lot, 5 points. Nice and open this, 5.0. Molly Ollie's Wishes, I nearly went with her, but I haven't. Harry and Dan Skelton, 6.5. Just wonder if Harry's mounts are going to be over bet. 7.0 Bourbon Beauty, Regarding Ruth, 10.0, then into the bigger prices. You can go first this time, Steve. I take it we're going for a slightly bigger price here?
I hope so. The last race, be worried about the pace. Don't worry about the pace in this. I think there's too much of it. There's loads of them that like to go off in front. Kim Bailey's Yevering Bell likes to go off in front. Molly's Ollie's Wishes likes to go off in front. And there's a few others lower down as well. Bourbon Beauty. So the pace is going to be sound. There's only one worry with Little River Bay for me, and that is the trainer form. This is Philip Hobbs's. And everyone will say, oh, Time Hill won last week, but that's been his only winner in April. And I always think with trainer form, the very best horses can run through trainer form, certainly run through it a lot better than some of the others. So that is the kind of proviso on Little River Bay, because other than that, I think she's got a really good chance. And she won her first 3 starts of this season, Wincanton, Fontwell and Newbury. Looked a really nice prospect, and it was increasingly bad ground. She won Newbury at heavy, and then went to Sandown for that race that was run on really brutal ground in February. I think they call it the Jane Seymour Novices Hurdle. It's a grade 2 or something. The Anything for Love won, and she didn't jump very well that day, which I was a bit surprised. I don't know whether anything was up or whether it just really was the ground, because she's from that really good family that run in the same colours. Horses like Imperial Presence, Generous Ransom. And although they handled soft ground, they handled much faster ground as well. So there's reasons to hope that Little River Bay will handle the conditions. And if she does, I think she'll have this set up for a lovely. I think a few of these horses are better over a bit further, but she looks a real 2.5 miler to me. She runs a bit keen on occasions, but I think that's because of the steadiest pace due to the conditions. And now she's getting a faster pace, and I think she'll have this set up for it. Just ridden just behind the pacer in midfield and pick them up. I think there's definitely potential for her to be nicely treated. This is her handicap debut. I think apart from trainer form, she's got a lot going for her, and she would be my selection. I would probably keep stakes smallish because of the worry about the stable. But apart from that, yeah, the price, you're getting a nice price for her, aren't you? What are you getting? About 9?
No, 11.0. 11.0. Win and place. Win and place.
I think she'll win if it wasn't for the train form. So I would probably just stay win.
Okay. So normally when we have a lot of people on the pod, we have a WhatsApp group and I get the selections in just so I can sort of move it around and we know who's selecting who. But because it's only 2 of us, we just said, well, let's just have a chat about it and see what comes up. And I like Little River Bay as well. So we're either going to have a really good day or a really bad day. I don't have a huge amount to add other than definitely the ground last time. As Nikki would say, terrible ground, Sandown, but it wasn't good. It was bad ground. And she didn't handle it. Look, the other thing is that was about a time when Philip Hobbs started to go a bit quiet, and she just didn't jump out the ground. Maybe the track wasn't right, but I think at the prices, I'm definitely worried about trainer form. And I had a chat at Aintree with Martin Dixon about this. He was very strong on Time Hill. I was saying, are you worried about trainer form at all? And he said, I've looked through it, and at the prices, a lot of his horses are still, the big prices are running okay. It's not as if he's had a raft of beaten favourites, so he's not too worried about it. I think it is a niggling concern, but I think because of that, it doesn't mean I'm not going to back her. I think the ground will be okay for her, fine for her. I think she wants a test at the trip, and I think on her form, she's 132. You could argue she's definitely well treated. Yeah, she was disappointing last time, but I thought, the way she went through it at Newbury and the way she kept on to win, she was better than the winning distance there, and went up 4 for it in that novice hurdle. First going a handicap, sitting off a decent pace, I think will really suit, and you kind of said everything else. So that's it, Josie. Hopefully we have a good day. I'm scared now.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be us on holiday next if we keep agreeing, but we can't agree for all this part. I'm sure we're going to have some difference of opinion.
Well, I'm not. Well, actually, we might have a bet in this one. So let's move on to the 3 o'clock at Newmarket, which is the Abernant Stakes. I suppose the race all hinges around Oxted because of the fact that he's odds on. Although I will say, I thought he could be a very, very short price. I thought he could be a sort of 1.5 jobby. But I think 1.8 as things stand could be interesting. Summergand is 7.5, 9.5 Emiratiana, and we get stuck into double figures. There's two things I want to say about the horse. One, everything's perfect for him to win this, as long as Saudi hasn't taken its toll. He didn't run as bad as I thought on the face of it in Saudi, where the track probably didn't suit ideally, but I think he was just more, he probably didn't. I spoke to Harry Teal about this. He thinks it was just the travelling. Maybe he's just not a horse that travels very well. They're good with travelling horses. They've got a good record of it with horses they have sent out to Dubai and Doha and the like. And I think he was okay on the surface, but he just didn't really like the travelling per se and wasn't at his best. I think if they'd have gone on to Dubai and run over 6 furlongs, he'd have won in the Alcoz, but they didn't. They come back here and they've got all eyes on the July Cup. I think what will be interesting is what they do at Royal Ascot. I've got a sneaking suspicion they won't try and run over 6 again on the straight course as they did on Champions Day. And they might just roll those dice, a bit like a Blue Point, who a sharp 6, he run over 6, but over 5, he'll run in a King Stand. And I'd fancy him. Batasha isn't back in Charlie Hills yet. He's not actually in the betting, but I think that's worth bearing in mind for this Oxted for a King Stand. Definitely. I think that race could be ideal for him. And I'm going to put him up as a bet at this price. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. There you go. Nothing to add. Steve Jones.
Yeah, he's the obvious one. He's the class act. And like you say, he is a sprinter. He's not a horse that's running over 6 that you think you might stretch him out to 7. You're definitely looking to go back with him if you're going in any direction. And he showed last season that he is a top-notcher because he won this race, which was obviously delayed a bit because of the pandemic. So he took this race last year, beating Emirati Allen back into 3rd. And then you're going further back to the likes of Brando, who is another horse that's won this. I think he won this race, the Abernant, a couple of times. And then went to the July Cup and just looked exceptional. He went through that race like a proper sprinter. And although it probably wasn't the highest quality July Cup we've ever seen, he won it. And he didn't run at all bad at Ascot, considering the ground was softer. And I think he does handle softer ground, but it's just that he has got so much pace. Over 6 furlongs, it's always going to tax his speed a little bit and blunt his speed. So he's been in Saudi. You say that he didn't run bad. Any horse that runs on dirt that hasn't, I think you can just say, well, you can certainly excuse it. And as long as that travelling hasn't taken too much out of him, like there'd be worse odds on shots, because you look at around Emirati Anna, who ran perfectly respectable and probably put in one of his best ever efforts at Doncaster when beaten by Royal Commando in the Cambridge Trophy. He was brushed aside in this race last year. He'll have had to have improved a good deal to reverse that form. And horses like Exalted Angel and Summergand, who filled the first two places on Good Friday at Lingfield. But Summerhand has to come from off the pace. He's one of those horses that loves coming from off a fast pace. So for that reason, in a small field at Newmarket, that's not going to set up for him, in my opinion. So, yeah, it all points to Oxted. Just if he could run below par quite significantly and still win.
It's a weak renewal. I think he scared a lot of them off, to be honest. It's not a very good renewal of the race. And we agree again. But I mean, he's a warm order. But I think he could definitely go off in the sort of 1.6s. So I wouldn't put you off backing him now. Yeah, I think he's a fair price, to be honest, even though he's odds on. I don't rule out backing odds on the shots. I think there's a bit of value there, and I sort of think there is value there. Are we done with the Abernant, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. I just thought it's just one of those races. I think that the best horse by quite some distance will win.
Would you have a bet? Would you just watch it, or would you actually have a bet on it?
I don't generally bet odds on.
Okay.
I could if he went to 10 to 11 that he's got no chance of being, or 1.9. I don't see him getting to that price, but you might throw a few quid at it. But it's not really my style.
You'd back him at 5.0, wouldn't you, Jonesy? Probably have a bit on then, you know.
Place bet.
Yeah. Right, we move on. We do agree on that. But yeah, I think the most interesting thing is how they campaign him from here. The Craven. Nice big field for this. Well, 10 going for it, and it is relatively open. Master of the Season, a first-time hood. 3.5. 6.5 for La Barossa. Charlie Appley does watch this, so apologies, Charlie. Khartoum, 7.0. Sandhurst is 9.5. 11.0 for Devil Wala, double figures. You can go first, Steve. Top of the market or bigger prices?
I don't think you've got to mind. Did you say Mystery of Smiles? Mystery Smiles?
I mean, I'm not joking when I say that I'm putting up 2 bets for this, and that's one of them. Great. Mystery Smiles. Yeah. Go on. Mystery Smiles 13.0.
Yeah. Now this is really fair, I think, because I'm not a fan of these horses at the top of the market. Master of the Seas with a hood on. I know the form last year looks good when fourth in the National Stakes, when St Mark's Basilica, who obviously came out and won Dewhurst later in the season. That form obviously is very good, but then came out in Dubai at maiden Master of the Seas and was turned over at 4 to 11 by a stablemate. And now they got the hood on, where you think over a mile with a hood on at Newmarket, they're going to have to ride this horse patiently. That's not going to be an advantage. You really want a horse that's a little bit more straightforward on paper than that. And that's why I think Mystery of Smiles comes in. Won the first 2 starts last year. It's interesting pedigree this horse has got, because he's a son of Memaz, who is starting to look really good at stud, and has horses with a fair bit of pace. But Mystery of Smiles, to me, he has only raced over 6 furlongs. And for me, he looks like a horse that wants to go up.
You can take out the OV, Jonesy. Just take out the OV. You can take out the OV, just Mystery Smiles.
Do I keep saying Mystery of Smiles?
Yeah.
Why am I doing that?
Take it out, Jonesy.
Why am I doing that? Don't make it more
complicated.
Mystery Smiles. Why was I doing that? So Mystery Smiles won first 2 starts last season. Small fields, weren't particularly high profile. Windsor and Chester. Then went to the Gimcrack, ran a really nice race up in class. Now the Gimcrack wouldn't have been the hottest race for juveniles last season, but still took another step forward. And again, on a track like York, which is sharp, 6 furlongs, I think Mystery Smiles going to improve going up in distance. It certainly looked like that at Kempton. And I thought this was an interesting performance in a Group 3 on the all-weather behind Mighty Gurkha and Cloudbridge. That's all right form. I mean, again, he's going to have to take another step forward. But the fact that he was in the wrong position, he was on the rail, which I don't like at Kempton, going round that turn. And when they spin into the straight, he's forced over to the far side when I think it tends to be better up the middle. And he's trying to make the ground up. And he had to wait for that run. And he really wants to go up in distance. I think at 13.0, that's a nice bet, certainly each way. When there are worries about those at the top of the market, when you consider Aidan O'Brien's got 2 in there and his horse is never a really fired up in these trials first time up. And
he's never won the Craven, has he?
He's never won the Craven. He had the favourite a few years ago that bombed out. He hasn't had much run well for a long time in this, if ever. So you're not looking at the Ballydoyle A team. You're not. And the
ones I saw, the 2 ran shocking yesterday in first time tongue ties as well.
But they do. Earlier in the season, Aidan O'Brien's horses, he doesn't have them hard fit to run in these trials. If quite often the horses that win the Guineas in the Classic go straight there.
Agreed. And the ones that and he certainly doesn't send his bet. I think he said in an interview on Racing TV, he's sending the ones to this meeting because there aren't enough races for the team he's got, but they are not the A team he's sending over here. He had Van Gogh entered in this, but I'm not sure where that's going. Maybe straight to the Guineas. So there you go. So one play in it, win and place, Mystery Smiles.
Mystery Smiles. Know of.
Right, so he's one of mine. I promise we didn't discuss this beforehand. I genuinely think you've got to take on the top of the market. When Master of the Seas made his debut, ahead of William Bligh, which is decent form, and also Yabir, who's come out and won the Haynes, Hanson and Clark for Charlie Appleby. His horses walked around the paddock that day, and I thought you had 2 types of horse. You had Master of the Seas, who just looked a ready 2-year-old. Looked a beautiful horse, an absolute 2-year-old. He won that race, and he proved to be the best of them last year. And Yabir was a horse who just looked like he's actually my horse to follow this year. He looked like he was going to develop and just improve, and his pedigree says he will as well. And Mystery Smiles why have I said Mystery Smiles? Master of the Seas has. I don't know. Maybe he has developed, but I just think he's worth taking on in the first time hood. I think there could physically be horses just improve past. Might be completely wrong, but I thought he was vulnerable at the top of the betting with the hood on for the first time. I wasn't in Dubai when he ran there, but he was beaten. He was beaten and warm odds on. So he was disappointing. So I think he's vulnerable, and I'd happily not back Aidan's for all if I nearly put up Sandhurst. And then you come to Mystery Smiles for all the reasons Steve said. He'll race handy. He's got some good form last year. I thought that Gimcrack form was really good, when he was behind Minzal and Devil Wala, and he did best of those up with the pace. And I think at this track, he may just reverse form with Devil Wala. So I'd have win and place with him. And at 15.0, I'd have some win and place with Akmam as well for Brian Meehan. I like that one ruler form. Van Gogh was a couple of places ahead of him. He finished a length and a quarter behind Akmam. Again, and I know this was the Rolling Mile, but it was soft ground that day, and this horse had previously won on a sounder surface. He moves like a top of the ground horse, and he finished best of those up with the pace. So I thought he was just overlooked based upon that run, and he's not going to go on and win a Guineas, I know, but I don't think he will. But I thought for this, first up, on the pace, with a good run, a good form behind one ruler last time, and McGallen and Van Gogh and I thought he was a little bit overlooked. So win and place him with 10 runners in it, 15.0, Akmam and Mystery Smiles. Move on. We've never agreed on so much. Best bet, Steve. Who is we can agree on best bet as well. I wonder if we will. Steve Jones, your best bet for Thursday's racing?
At the current price is Scholastic. I think in the first at Cheltenham, Joseph O'Brien coming over, I think she will go off a lot shorter than 3.1. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2.1.
She's 3.25 now, Steve.
See, the effect I have on the market is staggering.
I'm going to do it, and I'm going to agree with you. My best bet at those prices, 3.25 Scholastic, because that was going to be mine. And it's ridiculous, isn't it? Our producer will just be like, "What is the point? What is this, lads?" It's pathetic.
I always worry. I always think when everyone agrees, everyone's usually wrong.
But you know, I came here looking at her price, thinking you should go short on that, and that is the bet I'd be most confident about, probably most confident about. So there you go, 3.25. We'll go off shorter. Scholastic in the juvenile handicap hurdle. Done. May we be right or never speak again, Steve. Let's move on to Friday's action. So, as it stands, no prices, but we thought we'd just preview three of the most open races, although the Ayr race has cut up a touch. So we'll start with the Silver Bar Handicap, the 2:15 at Newbury. 2 miles, half a furlong for this. You get it's a decent size field, given that, 14 in there. And I quite like these staying races at Newbury. They tend to produce some good winners. The horse who I'm going to be most interested in at the prices, and I'd be really disappointed, Steve, if this horse went off favourite. I'd be hoping he'd be sort of, third or fourth in, personally, is Almiguar, the horse who ran at Kempton. Oh, no. You're joking. This is desperate. So the reason I like Almiguar is we need to discuss it next time.
This isn't a stitch-up, but fair play your confidence. If you don't think this horse is going to go off favourite, then I am.
Do you think you're definitely up? No, but all serious. Do you think you'd definitely go off favourite up that far in trip? I could. He will, won't he? Well, all right. Anyway,
I think he's miles ahead of his mark.
I think he is. Now, so I was at Kempton when he ran over the 1.5 miles a couple of starts ago, and I didn't like what he did there for the trip. I thought this horse. I love Tagruda is down, and I thought he's got to go up in trip surely. And they came back to 11 last time. And I think I might have put him up as a place lay, and we all went for Al-Zarakan. Three of us went for Al-Zarakan. You tried to be clever, Steve. And Al-Zarakan won, and this horse was second. It wasn't out of the places. But my God, that Al-Zarakan form is rock solid. He's shaped as though he wants further, and I'm really interested to see him up in trip. Now, this is a 10-runner field, and the horse is switching to the turf or back to the turf and decent ground as well. So he's not a good thing. I would worry if he was a very strong favourite. I'm not sure I'd support him if he was a very strong favourite, to be honest. I'm talking sort of, I'd personally want 3.0 and above would be what I'd want in a 10-runner field. So I hope I can get that. But I'm most excited to see him. What do you want to add, Steve?
I tell you one thing that is fascinating in this race is you mentioned that he's a son of Tagruda. He's not the only son of an Oaks winner in the field, because Imperium is a son of Ramruna, who won the Oaks for Henry Cecil, and I think Kieran Fallon yonks ago, maybe 99 going back. So
great depth to that knowledge. Beautiful.
So there's some very good horses with good pedigrees in here, but Almawa just looks like the typical horse. I don't think Kempton would be his track. I think getting on a bit of turf is going to be fine for him, even though he's Dubawi. And the more galloping track will certainly suit this horse. Going up in distance, he'll have to stay because there's plenty of pace in here. Astralis always loves to go from the front, and Mark Johnson's got 3 runners, I think, in there, and a couple of those like to go forward. Hockfeld went forward at Musselburgh last time, and Rochester House is another strong stayer. So he'll have to stay the distance, but I think he will. I think he'll thrive on it. And a lot of these horses, you'll be seeing them again and again in this sort of race during the summer. I don't think we'll see a Malwa in this sort of race for too long. Excuse me. I think this is a horse that will be running and stay in group races. And as a 4-year-old, he's open to any amount of improvement. And if he doesn't go off favourite, I think he's a great bet. but I think that they might well get carried away with him a little bit, but you can see why he's very, very solid.
Check market opening, I think, on that, because I think he'll be well supported. We'll move on to the 7 furlong handicap, which follows it at 250 at Newbury. We can't agree, surely. There's 2 horses I want to mention here, but you can start us off, Steve, for this. Who and why?
I thought it was the toughest races that we're doing, to be honest. It's full of those 3-year-olds again. They're open to all sorts of improvement. But the one I like is Richard Hannon's. I'm going to look at your face now. Dingle.
Dingle, yeah.
You can't be tipping Dingle.
I promise, I've got 2. Dingle's one of them. Go on. But I think he will be fav. Go on. Why Dingle?
Do you think he'll be favourite? Oh, yeah, that surprises me.
Hannon's got such a good record in this, and Hannon Senior did. And, that Convivial is about the best maiden going, isn't it? It tends to be. Naval Crown came out and beat Master of the Season in Dubai. The second had good form with Al Kumayt and then came out and won at Leicester subsequently. I know he was beaten at the start of this season, Tour Lead. I think it's good form, and I don't really mind about him coming back in trip. And he's well drawn to have options for all this pace on either wing. I think he will be fav, Dingle, but he can't be. 16 runners. I'd be hoping for sort of 5.0 the field, and I'd back him at that. Go on.
Well, the other one I like, who's drawn right on the wing, but I don't think it'd be a problem because he certainly has made the running in the past, so he's quite happy on his own. He's Richard Hannon's other one, Clarendon Cross, with Tor Hammer Hansen on, and he was a sort of a horse that last year had the 3 runs, ran very well on his debut at Haydock when didn't really look to be all that clued up, missed the break, and I think it was a maiden and they were all making their debut. It must have been quite early last season, just a week or 2 into it. But Devious Company, who won it, went on to have forming group races, and Clarendon Cross was only 3 or 4 lengths behind, having missed the break. Then didn't run very well on soft ground in the Chesham, so we can not worry about that on the ground. And then came up against Cloudbridge at Leicester, of all places, in a novice. So I think there's certainly reasons to think that Clarendon Cross is also well handicapped. And if he was significantly bigger than Dingle, I would perhaps come back and chance him in winning place markets.
Clarendon Cross drawn 16, as you say. And I wouldn't love that if it was soft ground at Newbury, but it's not going to be. Otherwise, I feel like on the straight course, middle to fast, I can be better. But I think I'll be fine on the ground that there is likely to be. The other one I wanted to mention as well as Dingle is Know When to Run for Roger Teal. You watch the ground, because if there's any firm in the going description, he's got quite a rounded knee and he disappointed on quickish ground last time. Before that, he had good form with cut underfoot, but I thought he ran well at the track the back end of last year. Maybe he just needed that run at Doncaster last time, but he was disappointing. There was a word for this horse at Newbury, 1 or 2 that his trainer had in the race 2 starts ago. The other one was a horse called Chipstead, and this horse went off a good bit shorter and was really well backed to Know When to Run, and he ran pretty well. I think he's just worth keeping on side this season. Rated 84, I think he's well ahead of that. But I would be wary if it was quick ground. But Dingle's the main bet. What
was the word for him at Newbury? Was it don't?
yeah, don't run. Hey, he was all right. Got the each way money back. I think there is pace in 1, so I think stall 2 is fine. My goodness me. Right, we can't agree on this last one. Here we go for the 315. Just the 7 runners in this. It's a listed handicap chase. And I'm going to go with Harry Skelton's horse. All right, thank goodness for that. Not that Fweese. It's likely to be at the top of the market. Do you know, it's difficult to put up big outsiders here because we don't know the market, and you're sort of second guessing. Sometimes you can spot what's likely to be under bet, but I think this horse will be towards the top of the market. But I think they tried to campaign him, Steve, for Cheltenham, and he ran okay behind Sky Pirate in one of the few races that the British won. He was held up quite a way off it. Ibleo got into it from the rear, but but not many did, and he ran really well. And he has that profile of a horse that was kept off over the deepest, darkest midwinter to avoid slow ground. He did run in January, but that was in a jumpers bumper. He won a jumpers bumper on the Tapeta at Newcastle, and I still think he's well treated off a mark of 137. He ran very well at Cheltenham. That's some of the best form coming into it, and I think a strongly run 2.5 is what he wants, particularly at this track. Cheltenham 2 miles fine, but I think stepping up in trip is no problem. His last win over fences came at this trip, and the ground should be fine. So he's likely to be right up there in the betting. But I thought he was the most interesting horse in the race. Steve,
yeah, I think these Skelton horses might be overbet. It's hard to tell with not having a real the betting not started yet. I thought he was one to take on personally.
Way!
I thought that Grand Annual form, he looked to be going really well, sort of coming down the bank, and I thought it was very disappointing that he was beaten as far as he was over 2 miles, because he's a horse that does travel well. So you would think 2 miles would be his trip. He had a wind operation, he had a breathing operation before he ran in January, and if that's the problem, he certainly ran like it might be a problem in the Grand Annual. He's going up 2.5 miles, which he has won over, albeit a pretty modest race at Perth, a novice chase when he was not well in, but certainly well in with the runner-up. But I thought that going back up in trip, he'd like to be held up. I think he was a little bit. He had the race, the Grand Annual, run to suit him at a fast pace over 2 miles, where he could just creep into it. There's no pace in this race, bar the one that I'm going to put up, which is Shahalian Monroe, who all he does is get out in front, jump and gallop. He's got form on soft ground. He's got form on better as well, and he ran really well against Court Master, who was just hauled down by Court Master in the closing stages at Kelso last time. That was over 2.6. Might just stretch him a bit, being ridden that aggressive. He jumped really, really well, and he was giving the runner-up a stone in weight. I know this is a slightly better race. Well, the top horse, Voix de Rêve, is giving everything a stone. So maybe it's not such a deep race as we think it is, because a lot of these horses like to be held up. Thienval, he likes to be held up. Not that Fuse is best when held up. And Admiral's Secret is a horse that it's got 2 ways of running, but he can boil over, and he has to be held up. So I think this horse will get a free lead out in front, and that's Dangerous Air, although it's a slightly uphill finish. Am I boring you, old chap? You yawned.
I did. I didn't mean to. A baby kept me up late last night. Go on, Josie.
So yeah, I think this horse is that it's all about the run style, and you get out in front, and it'd be very hard to pass. You get rolling up the straight. Shahalian Monroe.
Shahalian Monroe for Josie. Oh, how rude of me! I apologise. I can see it. That is our look at the 3:15 at Ayr. We'll sort of be on the Twitter machine, just giving you some updates when prices come out, on maybe tomorrow on the day as well, just to sort of reevaluate our selections, how strong they are, etc. Steve, a pleasure. I apologise that we agreed on so much. It might mean you're going to have a bad day.
Well, we're either going to be getting a monstrous pay rise or the sack. So
yeah. I'll take somewhere in the middle. Steve, thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, we'll be just keep an eye out for us towards the end of the month, because we've got a Punchestown special, which is I can't wait for Punchestown, and we're also going to have the Guineas at the end of that week as well. Thanks for watching Steve and I this week. Best of luck. Bye bye.